guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing something a little different than tarot card reading. I was going to do a tarot card reading today, but I was inspired actually by another witch here on YouTube. Her name is Kelly Ann Maddox, which is really funny to me because her last name is the same last name as my brother-in-law. But anyway, she actually posted a video a couple days ago talking about 10 witchy things that she does not really do that much or at all. So I was inspired by her to do something similar, and I'm going to do today, I'm going to have a talk about 5 witchy things I don't practice as much or at all, and 5 witchy things that I do practice that other witches might not practice as much, right? So let's go ahead and start with the 5 witchy things that I don't practice as much. I hope you forgive me. I have my notebook here just in case I forget anything on my list here, so I can make sure I name everything for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so 5 witchy things that I don't practice as much. Now, some of these things are things I'm just not really into. It's not really my cup of tea. But some of these things I am interested in doing, I just haven't been able to get around to it yet, or I haven't been able to learn much about it yet. The very first thing is scrying. Now, this is definitely one of those things that I definitely want to get more into. If you're not familiar with it, scrying is the art of crystal ball gazing or mirror gazing, mirror magic. It's mostly just reading into a crystal or being able to read a crystal or a black mirror, right? So I really would love to get more into that. Traditionally, mirror scrying is with mirrors made out of black tourmaline, I believe. But modern day witches, a lot of modern day witches I've noticed anyway, simply use black spray paint, black velvet. You can even get like a picture frame and put black velvet underneath the glass. And that can be your scrying mirror. Again, like I've said in my past couple of videos about programming, you can pretty much program anything you want to do, anything you want, in my opinion, and in my witchy experience. So that's definitely the first thing that I do not practice. Definitely one that I want to get more into, for sure. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. The next thing that I don't practice as much, or I'd say I do a little bit, but just not as much as other witches, specific deities. I know a lot of witches who, there's a specific deity that they pray to or give offerings to like every day. I don't really have specific deities. I do love the goddess and the god, the traditional Wiccan goddess and the god. However, I'm not really sure how I picture them in my head. You can picture the goddess and the god however you want. So I think I kind of picture the goddess as Gaia, and the god I haven't really figured out yet. That's just me personally. And I kind of honestly don't know how I feel about them being, like, I almost feel like the goddess and the god is simply like the earth, the universe, nature, the elements. I feel like they kind of represent those things more than anything to me. I know some witches might really disagree with that, but that's okay. There is a specific deity that I've been wanting to get to know more. It's Santa Morte. I would love to get to know her more. Also, like I said, the goddess and the god, Gaia. Definitely there's some other goddesses and gods that I think are very interesting. However, if I learned more about them, I don't know if I would be open to a specific god or goddess after I got to know. I might. I'm not really sure. But there's none really that really stick out as something specific. Like, there's no deity that no godlike or goddess-like figure that I really... See, I struggle saying that because I love the goddess so much, but again, I see the goddess as kind of a god of different things. She could be Aphrodite, she could be Gaia, she could be, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at her. So a specific one, I don't really have that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The next thing I don't do as much in my practice is something that I think a lot of witches are gonna be super bummed out by. And I'm almost kind of scared to say it. But the next thing I don't practice as much is astrology. No, please don't at me. I'm sorry. I know, like, I know my sun, I know my moon, I know my rising. I definitely have dabbled in it. Like, I've learned that I'm more of a cuspy than I'm technically an Aries, right? But I never really felt comfortable fully associating myself with Aries. But once I learned I was more of a cuspy, I actually learned that last year, that I'm more of a cuspy and more of an Aries Taurus, kind of. It made a lot more sense. And once I learned my rising moon and sun, it made a little bit more sense too. My friend Paige, I'm sure she's watching. Hi Paige, Tiny Lungs, helped me figure out my rising moon and sun. And it did make a lot more sense. It did. But I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't resonate with me. I don't think it's as important as other things in my practice. Like I said, I do know my signs and everything. I do think it's really cool. Like right now it's a Pisces moon, like we're in the Pisces season. Right? I think I mean, I think it's pretty interesting, I guess. And I love that other people like love it so much and it means so much to them. I think that's awesome. People's passion about it is really cool. I don't know. It's just not something that's super important to me. Again, please don't at me. I know it's like I said, so important to a lot of witches. Like a majority of witches I follow know astrology pretty well, right? I'm just not one of those witches. I don't know. I'm more of like a folky, elemental tarot reading, which tarot reading obviously can have a lot to do with astrology too. But I'm more of like a folky pagan. So astrology just isn't one of those things that is that important to me. So anyway, let's move on to the next thing. The next thing that I don't practice as much is wand usage. Now, I actually haven't met too many witches that have a wand. Now, I could be wrong. I just haven't heard too many witches talking about it, or I have seen too many witches using it in their practice. I would love to utilize apple tree wood, and that's actually one of the most popular types of wood to use for wands. I would love to use apple wood one day, but I don't know if I really want to make a wand. I think I'd rather use that for like my own witch's broom. I would love to make a witch's broom one day. But wands, I don't know. I just don't find it necessary. I really don't find it necessary. Yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. Like I said, I haven't really noticed too many witches actually that use it. So maybe I'm not that weird for not using a wand. But yeah, I just don't think it's really necessary. I never really think about it. There are definitely things like scrying and things like that I want to learn more about and get my hands on, right? But wands just isn't really one of them. So anyway, short and sweet, let's move on to the next thing. The last thing that I don't practice as much. Okay, the last thing that I could think of, generally speaking, that I don't practice as much is before a ritual or a ceremony, I don't cast a magic spell or I don't cut out a sacred space. Now, this again, I think is similar to astrology in that a lot of witches are gonna come for my throat for this. A lot of witches think it's so important, not only to enhance your magic, but to protect yourself. Now, I don't think it's really necessary. What I do before any ceremony, ritual, or any kind of practice that I do, I always cleanse with sage. I cleanse myself, and I will charge it with selenite, usually, at least my tarot reading space. And I always call on my guides to help protect me through my tourmaline and my black candle. I always, always ask for protection, right? That's a whole other rabbit hole I can go down, and what I give them in return and things like that. But I don't, like I said, I really don't think it's not for me. It's really not necessary. Like I said, I ask my guides, I call on my guides to protect me. I use my tourmaline, I use my black candle. I call on animal spirits to protect me. Yeah, and I really don't think that it's necessary. I believe protection is very, very important. And I put little things that protect me around my house, right? So I almost always feel protected anyway. I guess what I'm trying to say is my whole house is my sacred space, right? Like I have a pentacle hanging outside of my house. I used to have a broom hanging outside of my house, but I had to take that down because my dogs kept seeing it through the window of my door and kept thinking it was a person and barking at it, so I had to move it. But I have a witch bottle in my house next to my front door. I never sweep out of my front door. Just little things like that that I know I'm protected, right? And like I said, I always take the time to ask for protection from my guides too as well. So, and enhancing my magic, I believe that simple meditation, crystals, herbs, candles, a lot of those things enhance your magic already. And I definitely believe that my intent or my mental space enhances my magic as well. That's just me. I know a lot of witches, especially Wiccan, I've noticed, like very specifically Wiccan witches, casting a magic circle or cutting a sacred space is very important. And the word is slipping my mind, but the knife that you use for carving a sacred space and cutting it to walk through, I believe it's called, I forget what it's called, but I know it's a ritual knife. It's a ritual knife, but there's a very fancy word for it. I'll try to put it somewhere. I would like to get my hands on that, but not necessarily for a magic circle. I would like to use that for maybe cutting sigils or cutting up herbs for a ritual, things like that. But yeah, casting a magic circle, cutting a sacred space, just not that important to me. All right, guys, that is my list of 5 things I do not practice as much as other witches, or really at all. And so let's move on to the next list, which is 5 witchy things I do practice that other witches may not practice as much. Let's get it. All right, guys, so 5 witchy things I do practice. Number 1, this is probably needless to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Tarot reading. Not every witch I've ever met does tarot reading. I've met witches who don't really know much about it. They'd rather maybe use scrying or maybe meditating to see the truth. There's other ways, there's other practices, and you don't even have to really ask your spirit guides for any kind of message if you really don't want to. I think it's important, and I do it via tarot reading. If you haven't come to my channel before, if this is the first video that you've seen, that's mainly what I do on this channel, is pick a deck tarot readings for people. I also do it on my Instagram. So you should go follow me on my Instagram, Abby the Witch. I do tarot reading on there as well. But yeah, not every witch I've met does tarot card reading. In fact, there aren't very many witches that I've met that do practice tarot card reading. That being said, it's not like a huge shock when I meet a witch that does do tarot card reading, because there's a lot out there. So the next thing I have mentioned on here quite a bit, actually, excuse me, and that is Tritaka, or candle gazing. Tritaka is so important to me. It is an ancient art of meditation, basically. You find a quiet, dark space and you gaze into a candle until you are basically in a trance. Definitely very, very important to me. I find it is, for me personally, the most effective way to meditate. I do know that even meditation in general, not every witch does, but most witches I've ever met practice some kind of meditation, or have in the past, or want to try it, or whatever. Definitely, I would definitely try that specific kind of meditation if you have not. Tritaka is so powerful for me. And that actually leads me into the next thing, which is number 3, opening my third eye and aligning my chakras. This kind of, for me personally, this kind of goes hand in hand with Tritaka. Tritaka really helps me and has been helping me open my third eye. I can see her start to open. I've seen her in my mind, my third eye opening. She's opening, and I really want to give Tritaka that credit. And I also want to give music that credit as well, even though music isn't on my list. Izzy's daughter actually is on here on YouTube and on Instagram. She is lovely. She is wonderful. She makes great music for meditation and Tritaka, and she has actually really helped me open my third eye for sure. So when it comes to chakras, my other chakras, I do believe in chakras for sure. I have a crystal or a stone for every chakra. I don't practice aligning them as much as I do practice opening my third eye. And I definitely don't work on aligning my chakras as much as I do. Now, that being said, I probably have like accidentally aligned my chakras through Tritaka and candle gazing, for sure. But definitely consciously, when I'm doing that, I'm working on opening my third eye. If you're not sure what a third eye is, I could make a separate video on that. That's again a whole other rabbit hole I could go down. But yes, those two kind of go hand in hand for sure. But candle gazing is definitely something that I've yet to meet another witch that does that. I'm not saying there aren't witches out there who do it. I know there are, and I know I am not an original person to doing it. Again, it's a very ancient art of meditation. I'm not taking credit for it at all. I'm just saying I haven't personally yet met a lot of witches who do Tritaka. But yeah, that being said, if you do candle gazing, practice Tritaka, and if you're working on opening your third eye as well, comment down below. I'm very, very curious. I would love to pick your brain about it. Let's move on to the next thing. So the next thing that I do practice is I celebrate all of the pagan or witch Sabbats. I believe there are, how many Sabbats are there? 7? I think there's 7 Sabbats. Maybe there's more. I can't remember, but there's a certain amount of Sabbats throughout the year that pagans celebrates, or at least this pagan does. I celebrate everyone. I redecorate my altar for everyone. I have special ceremonies for a lot of them. I'll do certain things in sake of the time of the year for that Sabbat. Definitely think that is one of the main things, honestly, that I focus on in my craft, in my practice. I will practice a lot on like the phases of the earth, right? The seasons, the time of the year, what it means, just nature and balance. That's, to me, what the Sabbats, and it's really what the Sabbats represent. I mean, if you're Wiccan, it's more associated with the goddess and the god, and like Yule is the goddess giving birth to the god, and then Imbolc celebrates more sunlight. It's the god getting stronger and the goddess recovering after her birth, and yada yada yada. But you don't have to be Wiccan to celebrate Sabbats. I don't even know if I'm particularly 100% Wiccan. I'm kind of a confusing witch. I take from everything. But yeah, no, I celebrate all the Sabbats for sure. For sure, they're all very important to me. Let's move on to the next thing. So the next thing that I do that I practice, maybe not, this one definitely not as much as other witches, calling on animal spirits. I definitely call myself, if I had to call myself a certain type of witch, I feel like I'm all kinds of different types of witches, honestly, but an animal witch is definitely one of the main ones that I am. I am an animal witch. I call on animal spirits a lot. I definitely will work through the crow to have more psychic ability that I believe everyone naturally has, but we can get into that. That's a third rabbit hole I could go down. I definitely pay attention to messages from animals around me in nature, for sure. For example, I saw an albino robin last summer. That was a message. I've been seeing an owl more the past week than I have like almost my entire life. Just different things like that. Little messages, I call them. I think each animal has its own power. I think each animal has its own wisdom and own guidance to offer, right? I always give offerings in exchange. I always thank them in exchange, and they help me out. They guide me. So also let me down below if you guys call on animal spirits at all, or if you believe that animal spirits is even a thing. Do you think that everyone has one spirit animal, or do you think everyone has a balance of a lot of spirit animals? I mean, what do you think? What do you believe? I'm curious. All right, so let's move on to the very last thing. So the very last thing that I do practice is moon water, moon phases, and full moon rituals. So moon shit, right? I do know a lot of witches most witches I know love the moon, right? For one reason or another. It represents femininity, it represents the goddess, it represents the phases in your life, it could represent, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different witches, right? To me, definitely represents divine feminine to me, okay? The goddess, for sure. I definitely kind of associate my cat was small, my ankle tickled. What are you doing? Definitely associate my menstrual cycle with the moon phases. Now, I do know a lot of witches who will do waxing and waning moon spells or ceremonies. That's not as important to me, waxing and waning moon. I mostly focus on the full moon, sometimes like the half moon, but I don't really work much with waxing or waning necessarily. I don't think it's that important. I do think that the moon is powerful no matter what. But yeah, I definitely do focus mostly on the full moon. And moon water, I always do that every full moon. I will put a jar of water outside to manifest something. I usually use my water to drink. I'll just drink my moon water. I'll brew it in some tea. I know witches use it for other things like charging their crystals. They'll use moon water for different ceremonies or rituals in their cauldron. I've heard of billions of different ways you can use moon water. I mean, you Google it and there's like 1,000 different ways that you can use for sure. But I personally use it to manifest. The last moon water I used, I believe was... Well, I'll do the one before that because that's the one I remember better. I manifested confidence with a bay leaf, and I put the bay leaf in the jar of water, and I let it sit overnight in the moon, the full moon, and it soaked in the moon's rays, soaked in the power of the moon. The moon charged that intention I put into the water. I drank it, and I found myself having more confidence for sure. So anyway, that is another video I could make too. I love making moon water and manifesting with the moon. That's like one of my favorite things to do. So anyway, you guys, if there's anything on here that you think I'm like crazy for not doing or doing, let me know. If there's anything on here that you think I would find interesting that I didn't mention, let me know for sure. I'm curious what things that you guys do or don't do. Let me know. Like I said, I also have an Instagram, Abby the Witch. Go and follow me over there. I usually do tarot card readings over there and on here. So go ahead and subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you know when there's a tarot card reading posted. And until next time, guys, I hope you stay very well. Thank you. Bye.